Welcome to Rocky Top Review. Akron will travel south to visit Neyland Stadium for the first time since their 2012 visit, which they lost 47-26. I know Josh Rogers were on television, but I'm trying to read this. Thank you. The Zips are coming off a 52-0 loss at Michigan State and will try to pick up their first road win of the season when they travel to Knoxville to face the Vols, who won their first road matchup of the year last week, 34-27 in overtime versus Pitt. This game will be Coach Heupel's 15th-ranked Vols squad's last chance, final chance to iron out the remaining problems before diving into SEC play, where they will host that team from Gainesville next week. And with that, we welcome you to Week 3 of Rocky Top Review. I am your host, Stephen Shelton, this week, filling in for Steve Hartline. First of all, I had to raise the seat up, guys. I'm joined with my longtime partner, Jason Cox. We have Josh Rogers with us and this new guy.
I'm here. Yes,
Yeah.
it's great.
And Jamie Kyle.
Looking over there, though, the glare off your head from the light above is a little
which
distracting.
mic is yours? I'm going to turn that off
Yeah,
real quick.
please do.
So, Jason, listen, we go back. 7-point spread, 6-point spread. We go to Pitt. We win 34-28. It's not pretty, but we got it done.
We got it done. We won a game on the road, ranked opponent. Look, you can be negative on quite a few things, but at the end of the day, Tennessee walked out of Pittsburgh with a win. We got our revenge from last year. It wasn't pretty. There's certainly things to clean up, but man, what a great win for this program. Last year, the year before, the previous 10 years, we're not winning that football game, but we got it done this week, baby.
Josh Rogers, 21st down, 6 of 16 on third downs. We had 325 yards passing, 91 yards rushing, 416 total offense, which looks really good, but we only had 3 points in the second half.
Yeah, let's talk about the other side of the ball and the defense. I mean, offensively, Tennessee looked okay. I mean, they played a good game. Defensively, that secondary it has a lot to work to do before they can start competing really in the SEC. They gave up 415 yards to Pitt's offense that literally they had their first quarterback goes out, second quarterback was on crutches, and the third one never even played it down. So, I mean, how can an SEC, Tennessee fans right now are thinking, hey, man, we're back. We've got an offense.
We're on the front porch.
We're
not really back.
Read the Facebooks of everybody posting after last week's game is the best win in Tennessee history. I mean, this is the biggest win in 15 years. Tennessee offensively, yeah, they're back. They have some firepower there. Heupel has brought in an offense that really, honestly, the SEC hasn't seen in many, many years. I mean, it is fast-paced, it is quick, but defensively, I mean, you kind of revert back and you think of, like, we talked about this on the way to Nashville last week. Tennessee defensively has always been always one of their strongest points. I mean, you think about the guys who played up front for so many years. I mean, dating back into the 80s and the 70s. I mean, Tennessee defensively has always had great players. Secondary, Eric Berry, I mean, one of the best football players probably to come through Tennessee of all time. I mean, just unbelievable. Who is that next guy, or where is that next guy for that Tennessee secondary to really step up and move this program forward? Because until that secondary gets fixed, Tennessee is going to stay the same like they are. Because giving up 415 yards to Pitt, you'll give up 500 or 600 to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, or anyone else.
Jamie Kyle, Simmons Bank, has his own NASCAR show here. They asked me before the show started, what does Jamie bring to the table with football? I said, just about as much as NASCAR. So, Listen, Josh did hit on it, 415 yards of total offense Pitt had, but Tennessee, 26 pressures on the quarterback, the most in 10 seasons. And also, this from an advertising standpoint, 4.5 million eyeballs on this game, second only to Texas, Alabama, who had 10.6 million eyeballs on that game.
Right.
But what a huge weekend from a recruiting standpoint for Tennessee. And that defense, like Josh said, secondary just really didn't get it done.
Listen, two things are going to happen when you go to the second week of your season. First week, you're usually playing a cupcake. If you schedule somebody in the second week that's tough, you really don't have the bugs worked out yet, so it's pretty much going to be sloppy anyway. You take the opportunity that you might go in there flat and get beat, or you might go in there kind of flat in the first half. Then you figure it out and you kind of come back. I disagree with Josh a little bit on the defense.
Good.
I thought the defense is what kept us in the ball game. I don't think our offense was as good as advertised in this game. I think Pitt did some things to shut us down. You got to think we had an offensive line from Pitt that was there last year that was ACC champions, and a defensive line from Pitt that was ACC champions.
With
all
no
returning.
quarterback.
with no, I mean, listen, warm up the third string. They didn't want to put him in because they won't get him hurt. But I think that just shows you with the 26 pressures I think you mentioned, our defense got to the quarterback. You saw the week before when they played Ball State, they didn't really do that. And Ball State was doing some things such as getting rid of the ball pretty quick, so they didn't have time to get to him. But I thought against Pitt, our defense played better, maybe even than any time I saw them last year. Just with getting to the quarterback and making some plays. Listen, it was an in-the-trenches kind of deal. I mean, it was one of those tough games, and you see it with Texas A&M. I mean, who schedules, Appalachian State, right? You're going to be putting up with a pretty good team coming in there. If you're not ready for that, you can get beat. That's what happens. So you're vulnerable in the second game of the season by bringing in somebody like Pitt, like an Appy State, I guess Marshall.
Yeah,
but
that's Notre Dame.
But it's one of those things where you've got to kind of figure it out and go. And I think this game that they just played will help them going into not just Akron, but Florida and their SEC schedule.
Jason Cox, as we talk about that defense, that front seven, Aaron Beasley's played like a beast. Tyler Barron and Byron Young both had really good games last week. You can kind of see them growing into that. And some of that, we brought a coach up from Auburn that's really starting to influence that front seven, I think.
Yeah, Rodney Garner might be the best defensive line coach in the country. He's certainly top 2 or 3 in the. He's coached everywhere. He was a Bulldog for a lot of years. He coached under Coach Fulmer for a lot of years. That he pushes those guys really, really hard. He will stump cuss them, as we used to say a long time ago. But they love him. They love him because they know he wants the best for them, and he does get the most out of them. Last year, we saw the emergence of Theo Jackson. This year, it's Aaron Beasley at linebacker. He is playing so well at such a high level. And just like Theo did last year, he is working his way onto the draft boards. And that's what we have to have at Tennessee. We're not recruiting like Georgia. We're not recruiting like Alabama yet. So we got to develop. We've got to do the Rick Barnes way of doing it, bring in some 3-star guys, coach them up, and that's going to get the 4- and 5-star guys looking at us. And that's what's happening right now.
Quickly before the break, guys, 10.6 million eyeballs on Texas and Alabama, 4.5 million eyeballs on Tennessee and Pitt, 4.3 million eyeballs on Kentucky, Florida, the most watched September Saturday night game in ESPN since 2008. Josh, you're into marketing.
Yeah.
That means big dollars.
No, it does. And unfortunately, that game was at Pitt and not at UT, because if it was at UT, they should use that new Jumbotron that they have to put a big old billboard out there that says, if you play safety or cornerback, you can start at Tennessee, come sign with us, because that's really what they need. I agree with you, right? I do. That Tennessee's defense played well in the front. But that secondary that secondary in a couple weeks will be very exposed if they don't start straightening up a little bit.
That's true. I mean, we could look at it 15 different ways this Sunday, right? I think your play. We don't know. It's kind of like what I was going to say about Texas A&M. I don't know how talented they are because they could have had a very bad game and not been prepared, right? So I don't really know how good Pitt is or really know how good Tennessee is just judging off of 2 weeks and their schedule or whatever. So. Because West Virginia, I don't think is that good.
Well, Texas A&M might not be talented, but they're definitely paid, and that's the thing
Correct.
that Tennessee needs to start looking at doing too. But
the
I agree.
McDonald's
Yeah, they did. But I agree with you. And quickly to finish up this, 4.5 million eyeballs for Tennessee was huge. I mean, that was unbelievable for a night game like that. Kids around the country are watching this. They're seeing these games. And Tennessee, continuing with that offensive power that they have, they will continue to have big games like that when they play these other teams because they want to put Tennessee in that high-power offense in prime time.
And especially with the emotion of overtime, that probably helped out a ton too. Taking it to overtime, having that drama there, and then Tennessee coming out winning at the end, I thought was really good.
First time in 8 years, Tennessee has been second-ranked most eyeballs on a game in a SEC Saturday or in a college football Saturday. We're up against a hard break. You're listening to and watching Rocky Top Review on Mix 104.1 WCLE and MixTV.tv. CHI Memorial sponsors this show. We're not really sure why, but they're still doing it. Probably not for much longer. Regardless, we're up against a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rocky Top Review, presented by CHI Memorial. We're switching things up this week with Steve out of the way. or not here. Should I say out of the way?
Out of the way.
Out of the way.
Gone.
Yeah, pretty
Hopefully
much.
he doesn't come back.
I mean, I didn't want to say anything, but yeah.
Adios. See
Yeah.
you later.
Okay. We're going straight in. We're going to do some picks. We're kind of merging college football as a whole, and really trying to bring in more of a kind of a college game day type feel to the show. And so let's start with the best in the land. Number 1 Georgia travels to South Carolina. This kick has already happened. 12 o'clock today. Georgia 2-0, South Carolina 1-1. It's Mr. Bennett versus Mr. Rattler, and Mr. Rogers. We'll start with you since this is your team.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that Georgia goes to South Carolina and they win mightily and handily. I think Georgia is just honestly 2 or 3 steps above everyone else. I think, especially in the East, and for Georgia. You know, the game is at South Carolina, and I'm sure that it's going to be a great environment for a college football game. The number 1 team in the land is coming in. But I picked Georgia very big in this game.
Jamie?
I was looking up the point spread because whatever it is, I don't think it's enough. I think Georgia runs wild all over
Wow.
South Carolina. That South Carolina, just judging off the last 2 weeks, Shane Beamer that dancing around like I don't know what when the lights were out down there. No love for South Carolina. I think Georgia's the best team in the nation.
Jason Cox, Mr. Rattler's had a tough go of it when he found out that South Carolina's offensive line's just not as good as what he played behind at Oklahoma.
Well, you mentioned last week that they were the most overhyped team.
Thank you.
This year, and they've kind of taken that title away from us now as being the most overhyped team. But I will tell you this: Spencer Rattler threw the ball really, really well. Now he will throw it in dangerous situations. He'll get intercepted because of it, and that will always probably be his downfall. He's a gunslinger, if you want to call him that. But so I think the difference in this game is probably going to be South Carolina's going to turn it over several times. Georgia's going to get touchdowns off that, and it won't be close because of Spencer Rattler's mistakes.
3:30 CBS 1
Are you not picking?
No. Number 22
He's the host
Penn
now. He
State.
doesn't have
Yeah,
to
I'm the
pick.
host. Maybe one day you'll be the host. You don't have to pick.
Wow.
You should have to.
I'll take
pick.
Georgia. 22 Penn State travels to Auburn, where they're trying to have an orange out. This Auburn stuff confused me. They're the War Eagle and they're the Tiger. They're navy blue and then they're orange. I don't really.
white.
I don't even really know what's going on the plains down there. But 3:30 CBS. Jamie Kyle. This could be a fun one.
Could be a fun one. I think Auburn comes out on top. I mean, you look at the talent that Auburn has. I don't think Penn State, maybe reloading, if you could say that or whatever. James Franklin's never impressed me much. I mean, they do really well, I guess, in the Big Ten.
We
but-
couldn't agree more right now in life.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I think that's the thing for me. I think Auburn gets a big signature win down in the Plains.
Jason Cox, Penn State.
It's hard to come that far and win on the plains, but I'm going to go with Penn State. I think Auburn they are that rickety old automobile where the wheels are wanting to fall off and they just haven't fallen off yet. Coach Harson's got to be on your hot list.
I've got my hot list coming up, boys and girls.
He's
Got it
got to
coming
be,
up.
but they're 2-0. I mean,
Yeah.
if they go 3-0 after this, you got to
Yep.
cease that talk on him. I don't see it. Penn State gets this win.
Wow, Josh.
So earlier in the week, I picked Penn State, and I feel like I need to stay with them.
Okay.
But I agree with you. I think it's very difficult to win on the plains at 3:30 in that environment. But I think it's a sneaky, close game. I think that Penn State pulls it out by a field
I like
goal.
the word sneaky.
And I think it's that way because it's at Auburn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a tough place to win.
I like the word sneaky. Mississippi State 2-0 travels to LSU 1-1. ESPN 7:00 kick. Will Rogers has thrown 9 touchdowns. Jason Cox 2 interceptions. He's throwing the ball all over the place.
Well, you know what they say, the favorite movie for a pirate to go watch is an R-rated pirate.
Oh, boy.
So, I think give me the pirate. I love it. They are throwing the ball all over the place. Mississippi State, if they go 3-0, there's going to be a lot of talk about how good that team can be. Can they beat the Auburns? Can they beat the Alabamas? Can they beat the LSUs? He's building a program there.
Absolutely.
Give me Mississippi State.
Josh Rogers.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I think Mississippi State goes down to Baton Rouge and they win. I think that Mississippi State was one of my picks earlier in the year that could really win the West. I thought that it came down to obviously Alabama, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. Those were the 3 teams that would compete for it.
Really?
This year, yes.
Wow.
And with Texas A&M losing last week, that brings Mississippi State back up to that level of that number 2 spot. They are
Not Arkansas.
No, I don't think Arkansas is experienced enough yet.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so I think Mississippi State, they play really good football. You watched them last year. They played great football throughout the year, had some big losses that were kind of hit or miss. So Mississippi State beats LSU and LSU.
Hey, get Josh Rogers a patch for his eye. What about you, Jamie?
I think you ring the bell. I'm going to go with Mississippi State as
Oh,
well, but I
boy.
think Brian Kelly, left no talent in Notre Dame and inherited no talent left at LSU. A bunch of people transferred from down there and stuff like that. Quarterback didn't really impress me against Florida State. I guess it was last Thursday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, ran the ball, seemed like more than he threw it until the second half, and then he started throwing it a little bit. I think, like Josh said, I think Mississippi State is one of the up-and-coming teams in the SEC West. It's just going to depend on how that offense can go, and if the offense can go and they can get a defense very similar to Tennessee, they could be really good.
We got 10 minutes. We got to rapid fire a few of these. Hey, Jimbo Fisher lost last week. He's now 35-15 in his first 50 games. Kevin Sumlin, who they ran out of Texas A&M, was 36-14 in his first 50 games. So Jimbo Fisher takes his number 24 ranked Texas A&M team, and they will face Miami, who's 2-0. Jason Cox, who do you got in this one?
Well, I think the hot pick's going to be Miami. I'm going to take Texas A&M.
Wow.
I think they just looked past App State, which is a big mistake. The A&M's going with a new quarterback this week as well, so keep an eye on that.
Miami, Texas A&M's horrible.
Wow.
Whoa. That's hard to follow
was quick.
right?
That was quick.
I'm going A&M. I think, like Jason, I think it was overlooked last week, weren't prepared. They'll be prepared this week. I think they beat Miami, who schedule probably shows them better than what they are.
Cal travels to Notre Dame. The 0-2 Notre Dame fighting Irish. This is time for my hot seat. Scott Frost was the first one on my hot seat. He gone. Brian Kelly loses today. He's on the hot seat. And Marcus Freeman, he loses today, boys. He may be gone after 3 games, the quickest tenure of any Notre Dame coach in Notre Dame history. Josh Rogers, we'll start with you.
Cal, Freeman's out.
Woo.
Ditto.
Wow. Jason Cox.
Nope, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame comes back, bounces back, and win. BYU will travel to Oregon. Number 12 BYU travels to number 25 Oregon. BYU 2-0. Oregon 1-1. This is a 3:30 quick kick on Fox. Jamie Kyle, Oregon. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't pick any games, but this is one I did pick. I got Oregon in the upset over BYU.
Hard to judge because Georgia's so good, right? And
Right.
so they took one on the chin there. Gosh, just hard to pick against Oregon. I'd probably go Oregon.
Oregon, Jason Cox.
Give me Bo Picks and Oregon Ducks going to knock off BYU.
Josh, you saw Oregon live.
I did, and
what
they're
you
not
can
that
remember.
great. They're not, yeah, exactly. they're not that great, and so, but I am going with Oregon because I need them to keep winning and Georgia
Sure.
keep winning, and
Absolutely.
it keeps that record strong.
That's what it's about nowadays.
That's all it is.
Liberty 2-0 travels to 2-0 Wake Forest. Wake Forest ranked 19th in the nation now. This is an ACC game on the ACC network. 5 o'clock kick. We know all about Liberty's offense. Josh Rogers, no strangers to SEC. They can throw the ball, they can run the ball, they can score some points. But Wake Forest looks really good on defense this year.
Wake Forest is great on defense, but I think Liberty kind of gets that little upset. I mean, a lower class school compared to Wake Forest. So I got Liberty in this game.
I didn't want to pick anybody in the ACC that has a defense, so I'm going to go Wake Forest because they do have a defense. I think they'll be able to slow Liberty down.
Wake Forest, I'm not sure how many burner phones they'll be bringing with them from Liberty, but regardless, Jason Cox, Liberty travels to Wake Forest.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Wake Forest, but Tennessee's old friend Caden Salter is the starting quarterback for Liberty now. He recruited to Tennessee, transferred to Liberty, and so if you're interested in watching that game, Caden Salter, former Tennessee Vol.
Michigan, number 11, Michigan State host Washington 2-0. Washington is not ranked in this game. Michigan State is 11. Michigan State is the underdog in this game. How, I do not know, Josh Rogers, but Michigan State coming off a throbbing last week of Akron and looks to continue their winning ways.
Yeah, and the thing is, Washington playing at a 7:30 game, that's very late for Michigan, and it's an early game for Washington. So for me, I had a struggle with this because of the ranking, but I'm going to go with the experts here, and I pick Washington to win at home.
Wow. Jamie Cobb.
Wow, that one's tough. My heart keeps telling me Michigan State. I just feel like It seems like every year they're fairly consistent. They consistently win, but they consistently lose some that they should have won. And I'm hoping it's not this one. I'll go Michigan State.
Michigan State, Jason Cox.
Jamie, your heart is deceitful above all things. Washington.
There's the U,
Is that
Pastor.
biblical? Well, he said something. Whatever.
Bible stuff
Texas
in
Tech
college
2-0 is traveling to number 16 NC State. This is my second upset special. The Red Raiders upset NC State just because we didn't take Doran. I don't want him to win a lot over in NC State. 7 o'clock kick, ESPN2. Jason Cox, the Red Raiders, travel to play the Wolfpack in at what really a primetime showdown.
I do think Doran's got it going on in NC State, so I'm going to take the Wolfpack to win this game.
Oh, boy. Josh Rogers.
Yeah, so far, very offensively, very close to the same. The NC State, their quarterback's got 449 yards, 5 TDs on the year, 2 less interceptions than Texas Tech. I think turnovers are going to be a big deal in this game. Give me NC State late in the game.
Kind of look at this game as who's the better quarterback. And coming into the game, it looks like NC State's got the advantage there. And usually in these tight games like that, the better quarterback is the team that wins. So I'll go with NC State.
We got about 35 seconds for the next hard break. Troy 1-1 travels to Appy State 1-1. 3:30 ESPN Plus. College game day. You don't need to say any more, Jason Cox.
Fighting Dale Jones's App State.
App State.
Anybody that takes down the man and the people who spend all the money to get players in this world, you're my team now. Appy State all the way.
Anybody that collects $1.6 million to go down and beat somebody, I'm taking them. Appy State.
Appy State.
All new uniforms this week, boys.
We're up against another hard break. You're listening to Rocky Top Review on Mix 104.1 WCLE and watching it live on MixTV.tv. We'll be back in just a few moments. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third segment and final segment of Rocky Top Review Week 3, brought to you by CHI Memorial. Well, this is the game, gentlemen. Akron travels to Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. This is the 50th year. September 16th, 1972 was the first game ever played under the lights at Neyland Stadium. This will mark the 50th year that Neyland Stadium has hosted football games on Saturday nights under the lights. Coach Josh Heupel was awarded a contract extension this week. He got a $1 million bump in pay, $5 million a year now. Still the third lowest paid coach in the SEC. But his whole diagram of paying coaches is to pay other coaches, just not himself. His offense coordinator went from $750,000, Jason Cox, to $1.2 million, trying to keep this guy in house.
Yeah, I mean, I think those two work together real well. They came in together. Obviously, Josh Heupel is the one calling the shots, but Golish knows what he wants, knows what he does, and I think it's important that that tandem stays together. There's been a lot of question on the defensive side. Did they get any kind of raise? Is there nothing on the defensive side?
No numbers released.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I think Tim Banks needs to show improvement on that. So I'll be watching that to see the numbers on that. But I think it's important that we keep Alex Golish in house.
Well, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Rogers, more receptions than any other Tennessee receiver since 2013. You got to remember, Tennessee was known as wide receiver U back in the 80s and 90s. Most receiving receptions since 2013, and still trails Tillman, who has 15 catches for 230 yards this year.
Yeah, I mean, Tillman's the best receiver that Tennessee has and has had in a long time, probably since Jawan Jennings.
By the end of the year, Brew McCoy is the best receiver in Tennessee.
Do you think so?
I think so.
By the end of the year?
I think by the end of the year.
Well, you talked in previous little
I think chemistry right now is better. But I think overall, Brew McCoy is the best receiver on Tennessee's team.
And athletically, but chemistry plays a big part.
Sure.
I mean,
Yep.
who Hooker feels comfortable throwing the ball to, and who he can trust, and that's Tillman right now. And and the thing is, going forward, I really think that Tennessee has to look at opening up to Brew McCoy more, spraying the ball around a little bit, because when you start getting into this SEC schedule, they're going to be all over Cedric Tillman, and they're going to cover him. But back to what you said, really quick. I know we're
really
on the clock.
quick.
They paid their head coach and their offensive coordinator. What they need to do is open up the bank and hire a secondary coach, because that's what they really
go
need.
again.
All over it.
Listen, since 2001, since Heupel's first game, Tennessee has outscored opponents, Jamie Kyle, 207-51 in the first quarter. They are undefeated in the first half in Heupel's era. it's got to bode well, but we got to learn to finish.
Absolutely. I think that's the big thing is got to learn to finish games. You saw that this past week in Pitt, dropping the punt and getting the punt blocked. I think both of those things happen. If you catch it and punt it, I think you've got that game sealed away early in the fourth quarter instead of having to go to overtime. What real quick thing on it's kind of a joking thing on the you said most receptions since 2013. I think Garantano was like 14 to 21, right? Or 14 to 20. He's there 6 years. So that's why pretty easy to get by that whole deal because he didn't really throw the ball that well.
That's actually very true. I hate to admit. Listen, we got 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Let's go around the board. I'm going to start with Jamie Kyle this time. Akron, Tennessee.
I think Tennessee will still be scoring on Sunday morning when they have the Josh Heupel show. So I whatever point spread it is, they should exceed that.
Josh Rogers, you'll be live.
I will. And here's the thing is that Tennessee is going to win this game. There's no question about it. It's how bad do they win this game, right? If defensively, if Tennessee gives up more than 3 touchdowns and probably more than 350 yards passing, they should literally fire the entire defensive staff. This team should not have over 150 yards passing the entire game. They should not really have over probably 100 yards rushing in the entire game. This should be a complete blowout at home. I think there's less than 1,000 tickets left to be sold. It's going to be a sellout night game in Knoxville. They should win this game 65-7.
Jason Cox, not who wins the game, but is it more important that Florida beats South Florida or Florida loses South Florida because it's a sellout? What gets this crowd amped up more for next Saturday?
Give me the loss. Give me the loss to South Florida. That they will be falling apart down there. They'll be wanting to fire anybody and everybody that was in that stadium.
Quickly, we thought Anthony Richardson looked like the second coming of Cam Newton in week 1. Last week, he looked like the Richardson of old.
He looked like Joe Milton last week's what he looked like. This guy's your prototypical high school quarterback. You don't have a quarterback, you find your best athlete, you put him under center, and he wins ball games for you. But he has no touch on the ball, just like Joe Milton. Incredible athlete. Maybe he can get right. I don't know. But I think they have a Joe Milton situation on their hands.
Maybe Joe Milton can play secondary.
Maybe he's big enough.
Linebacker.
That's gonna do it for week 3. Listen, if you like this show better than previous shows with Steve Hartline, send your comments in to info@mymix1041.com or just call the station 614-6499. We'll be glad to kick him off.
The HHM hotline.
Yeah, whatever. The HHM hotline. I see this right here. The full service CPAs you can trust. HHM hotline. So listen, he doesn't memorize this stuff. He just reads it. For Jamie Kyle, for Josh Rogers, for my partner Jason Cox, thank you for watching and listening to Rocky Top Review Week 3 presented by CHI Memorial. Until next time, off to the Ball Network.